What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Reseller Greatness Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest who I have known for a while, but I don't really talk to a whole lot. We pass coming and going, but we haven't really had a ton of conversations directly. And Nina, fun fact, you are one of two people that took the personality test and have the same personality type as me. It's me, you, and Jack from the Amazon call. So that's why I think a lot of the things that we talk about, you just get them and then you roll. Because me and you, I think we speak the same language. So, like, when we do talk, you'll say something and I'll be like, spot on, you got it. Whether it's seeing through stuff, knowing kind of the right way to do stuff. And I think that comes from us having the same personality type, because Jack is the same way. And one of the traits for the personality type of a logistician is they mean what they say what they mean. And when they commit to doing something, they make sure to follow through. And I know for me, listing is life or death. And I know for you, you're getting your listings up. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And our word is our bond for us. And when they took the personality test, you can see everyone has a different personality, and it's beautiful that everyone has different personalities. Otherwise, the world would not be as fun as place if everyone had our personality type. We would all be robots, basically. But you can see, based on the personality type, that was their struggles with the business. So if they were social butterflies, it was hard for them to focus and kind of get those listings up. If they had, different types of things that, incentivize them, you can see where it did struggle. But I think that this personality type of kind of like putting everything in a straight line and ordering it, and, eBay makes a lot of sense to me. And I think, like, I speak the same language as eBay, and I think the personality type does help a lot. So with that being said, Nina, you are from Chicago. Please give us a brief introduction, who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Yeah, so I'm from Chicago. I currently live like in the outskirts, in the suburbs now. We moved up. eBay helped with that one. But I've been reselling since February of 2019, but I always like to say that when I began, first when I started with the group, it was just the podcast level. And then I decided to jump up a tier when Isaiah had tried to get me on the shoe call. That's another thing about our personality types, is we're super introverted. So I did not want to have anything to do with Zoom or my face. Like, even on my Instagram, I never really showed my face much on there. But
Sounds like someone else we know, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's funny. But yeah, so I joined the Facebook group level, and at that point, it was almost instant that I realized that I needed to the main issue that I was having was the consistency, right? So I like to think of that little window from 2019 to about October 2021, that I was just a hobby seller. It was something to pass time, because I had shifted from being working full time. I was a shift manager at Aldi for several years, and I took a step back from there and became a stay-at-home mom, and I was stir crazy. So it gave me something to do until I figured out what I wanted to do, which ended up being reselling anyway. Um, but as I said, it was a hobby. I kind of was just doing it to feel like I was contributing, get out the house, because there's only so much you can do in the day as a stay-at-home mom. At that time, I have three kids. So at that time, my two boys were in school already, and I had a toddler. My daughter was a toddler, about 4 years old. So I would take her with me to the thrift. It would give us something to do while the boys were in school until I had to go back and pick them up. Um, I actually started in clothing, and it didn't take me long to pivot from that. I did not like doing clothing. Um, and I found, because I was essentially limited on time and accessibility where like I can't just go up and leave whenever I wanted to go source. I had to really plan my days around the kids' schedules. I knew that time was of the, it was super important to me. So with shoes, I was able to get in and out relatively quick. Um, I think that there's a learning curve to every niche, but I think for shoes, it's easy to start with the brands right? And you won't go wrong with those. And I kind of started that way and it grew into what it is today. Um, the one thing that I think about shoes that holds people back is the cleaning.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can find something in your niche that tends to lock people out or, they have a little bit of a reservation of like going deep into that niche,
Right.
then use that as your strength and, go with it. Cause I think that that does hold a lot of people back from getting into shoes. It's just the cleaning and the processing time.
So the barrier to entry kind of protects the market in that instance when it does come to reselling.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that sounds kind of it's kind of contradicting what I just said, right? Because I'm like, I don't have a lot of time on my hands. But the time I on my hands was more so I didn't have time to source, right? Because you have to
Right.
physically leave, get out of your house. But if I have the shoes and I find little nuggets of time in my
Right.
day-to-day schedule at home, I can easily clean a couple pairs in between doing any other tasks that I need to do for the house. So once I got them, it was easier for me to maneuver around my daily schedule with the cleaning of the shoes. If I
Absolutely.
couldn't,
So
yeah.
so from Chicago, married, mom of three, couple $100,000 a year in sales. Don't forget that part. We got to big up you. Couple $100,000 a year in sales. You do a fantastic job. All right. So how exactly did you find out eBay? Because for me, when I worked at Circuit City, I got hired there for 2 weeks and then they filed bankruptcy and went into liquidation. So my friend Conrad, he told me about eBay and they had a remote or they had a bin of LCD remotes that mismatched and didn't belong to TVs. And he was like, you can sell these on eBay for a lot of money. And he showed me this remote that they were selling the whole bin for $20. One remote went for $80. And before that, I never knew really what eBay was. We all know what eBay is, but we don't know what eBay really is. So you go to the thrift. Where did you kind of discover that eBay was a thing?
Okay. It's funny because my husband worked at Circus City when it closed down too
Let's
at the same time.
go.
um, yeah, so I don't know exactly who, like how I found out or like who exactly um I got it from, but at that time, like you said, I was a young mom of three kids and I was heavy into couponing, right? So shout
Okay,
out
like Isaiah,
CVS, shout
like
out
Isaiah.
CVS.
I work there too.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out CVS because those saved my life, when my kids were young, the diapers. So I think it was somebody I was following on Instagram that was a couponer that was turning it into the eBay reselling. And that's how it got me into it. On Instagram, it's pretty easy. If you follow one person and you see like their hashtags, it's kind of like when you go down a rabbit hole on eBay
Mm-hmm.
when you're searching brands. Like you can, okay, well, here, okay, reseller, what is this? I click that hashtag and then it just opens you up to a whole new world that you didn't even know existed. So I think that's how I found out about it, just haphazardly scrolling through Instagram and seeing someone else in my area that was doing it.
And then you
So
you go to the thrift and you try to figure out something you can make some money on because what you said you wanted to feel like you were making a contribution and how important because I a lot of people a lot of moms say that they that comes up very often so like walk us through that like wanting to make a contribution to the household even though you are the caretaker like you said to the three kids.
well, it was a new concept for me because I've worked from like since I was 15. So it was difficult for me to stay home. And I know that, cool, like if you guys are stay-at-home moms, no judgment. But for me personally, like I just felt like I needed something to do, not only to contribute, but for me to like get out and feel like I have something for myself as well. Um, so that's when I decided, actually, I didn't just go to the thrift and use money because, as we recommend, don't do that, right? You sell what's in your house.
Right.
So my first sale, and I was just telling my husband this the other day, thank you for supporting me, because the first item I sold on eBay was his. It was a PlayStation 4 like stuff controller. I think I sold
Okay.
it for like $120. So
Okay.
$120 was already in my pocket, and I used that money to then bankroll and fund what it's become today. It's been a journey because, as we all know, it's not, overnight success. It's a lot of trial and error, making mistakes, finding what works, and then pivoting and heavily into that. The consistency, as I mentioned. But yeah, like it snowballed into what it is today, and I am proud to say that it's possible. Um, like I didn't think. Basically, I'm making more than double, triple what I was making, breaking my back working at Aldi several hours a week, never getting to see my kids. So besides the money, that's priceless to me, right? Because there was many times where I couldn't go to family events, I couldn't see my kids on certain holidays. I couldn't tuck them into bed at night because there was a lot of my husband works during the day, then I work at night, and that
Okay.
kind of balance. So this has definitely allowed me the freedom and flexibility to work around my kids and my husband's schedule while still providing a pretty decent income. So I'm super grateful for that.
Sure. So, like you said, the flexibility is huge. And your kids are a little bit older now. They're getting into sports, football, baseball. I think you even said wrestling. Like they're rocking and rolling, doing everything. And eBay was really, really helpful for me to never, ever miss a game, never, ever miss an engagement, never, ever miss a school play, an honor roll. If there was an honor roll assembly at 11 a.m., I don't have to ask anybody to go. I can just do my work before it and I can do my work after it. If they have a football game or a baseball game, you have that hard stop. We got to get as much as we can get done before that. We can go to the game, finish up when we get home. So now that, you know, it is a complexity as well, because now you're out of the house 6 nights a week. And with 3 kids, you might be out of the house 7 nights a week. So schedule is important. Do you work on a draft bank to schedule in days or times where you're not going to have enough time? Do you work on a draft bank to help with the weekends? Take us through the schedule of, so how many are you listing per day now?
At 15, I plan on jumping to the 20 in a
Great.
couple weeks.
15 items a day, 3 kids involved with sports, probably almost 7 days a week. What is the schedule like now?
The schedule, to be honest, I hate to disappoint anyone listening, but the schedule is that there is no schedule, but I know what the day-to-day schedule is, so I can plan accordingly day by day. Um, uh, all 3 kids are in wrestling right now, but the boys are at one location and Aria, my daughter, is at another. So, we have to divide and conquer that. And it's a lot. But the way that I do it is I don't like wasting time, right? So I know ahead of time that there's gonna be 2.5 hours where I'm sitting. I love my kids, but I'm not gonna sit in the gym and watch them practice wrestling all the time. So what I do is I take my laptop with me. I know that's gonna happen. So I set my day up to have my cleaning and photos done by the time I have to go pick them up from school and wrestling and all that. Like when 3 o'clock hits, that's crunch time for me on the
Yeah.
weekdays. Like I can't mess around anymore. There at that point there is a schedule. So I try to work my day around that and you maximize the time that they're at school so that I can get all that stuff done by the time I have to go, jump into mom mode. So what I do now is, since I have the photos, I'm sure a lot of people in the group have seen me on camera. I'm in the dark, listing in my car while they're at practice. So that's kind of how I work around that schedule. And then if there's like a lot of the times I'm busy on the weekends, family, like we have a huge family. So if I know that I have stuff going on that weekend, I plan those 5 days prior to set me up for that weekend. So it's kind of like a day by day, week by week basis. And I will admit that I've been struggling. Like, I know I have been setting some goals to have like a 1 week draft bank. I have been struggling to maintain that because, I'm in Chicago. So the last couple weeks, we've had a bunch of remote learning. Like, we never used to have that when I was a kid. If it was snowing or, cold outside, you just walk to school. But now, because of COVID, they're adapting and, they're letting the kids remote learn since they had those procedures already in place because of COVID. So it makes it easier on everyone. Not necessarily me, but that's why I'm struggling, because those curveballs. But that's why we have the draft bank. So even though I might be struggling to get a week, it's okay if I have 3 or 4 days. That'll help get me through those curveballs that life has thrown at me the last couple weeks. So I think if I can just manage to get a couple, like 3 or 4 days worth of draft bank, that would be like great for me, because that would cover a lot of the curveballs and any weekend activities. But that's kind of how I plan my day, and I hate to disappoint those listening, but
Oh,
there's no like solid schedule, unfortunately.
and right, and that was the moral of the story, which there's no solid schedule when you have all this stuff going on, but we have stuff that has to get done and blocks that we can work. And like you said, when 3 o'clock is up, you're no longer an eBay seller. You have no you can't do anything on eBay. You have to go pick up all the kids, take them to their activities, fourth lunch, like all of that stuff is every single day. So I have this hard stop at 3. There's not many shenanigans before 3 o'clock because you got to get that stuff done. So for a shoe seller, take us through like walking in the front door at the thrift, because for me as a clothing seller, I always tell everyone I go jackets, sweaters, button ups, polos, t-shirts, shorts, pants, peruse the kids section for Patagonia or North Face, peruse the women's section, Patagonia, North Face, check out, I'm out the door. But here at least you might have 2 racks of shoes front and back, so like 4 racks, and it might be from this wall to this wall of shoes. And if there's no shoes in that store, as a shoe seller, I can see myself in that store for like a minute and 45 seconds. So it is the shoe seller life a lot more in and out. Do they have larger selections in Chicago? Because I'm telling you, from where I live, it might be 20 feet of a shoe rack, 7 tiers, front and back. So you could literally walk around that thing and there's nothing, and you're out the door. And I've seen shoe sellers come in where I'm working 10,000 pieces and it's going to take me 35 minutes. And they come in and they look it around, they look it around, they look it around, and they're out the door. So for them, is it, I'm only looking for specific things that maybe your knowledge, you can find more stuff? Are they looking for the low hanging fruit? Is the model for a shoe seller hitting way more stores since the selection is so small? Or is the model way more knowledge because the selection is so small?
I think it's the second part, to be honest.
Right.
By us, it might be a little different, but I'm sure you know that, like, depending on whatever store you go to, it's laid out a little bit differently. The Goodwills in my area before COVID, they had an actual shoe section. I loved it. I love if I can go to a store and there's an actual shoe section, because, like you said, you can go in and out, skim with your eyes, grab what you need, and get onto the next. But after COVID, they started cross merchandising the shoes with the clothing to save, floor space. It makes no sense when they can add more items that way. So unfortunately, you have to kind of weave through every single aisle.
So what do you mean
And that,
cross merchandise? Are the shoes on top of the clothes?
yeah, they're
I've
on
seen
top.
that. I've seen that in a
Yeah,
couple stores.
which is it's super annoying, like
It's
because
annoying for clothing
for you
sellers
guys
because the
too.
shoes fall on the dang thing and we can't work the rack.
So it's annoying for me because what if there's like five people in that aisle looking for clothing and I just want the shoes? Like
Right.
I can't get in. So you kind of have to work yourself around people. Or half the time I'll leave my cart off to the side and just shimmy on through. But it does take a lot more time because you have to go through every single aisle. Um, so that's how the Goodwills are laid out. And there's not, I will say, there's not as many men's shoes in the Goodwills, in
Yeah.
my experience. Like, I think I've gone on a shoe call where I was live at the Goodwill and there's like one aisle for the men's. That's it on the top. That's it. But like we have the Savers in the city. It's called Unique, the Value Village, that chain.
We don't have any
Um,
of those. We don't have Savers or Value Village.
dude, you gotta
I'm
hit those up
I'm
whenever you go
so
on your
jealous
trek.
because I've seen them on YouTube. Value Village and Savers look amazing.
I love it because the self checkout.
What?
It's they have self checkout. So the lines, because you say, you know, the lines on half off days, because that's their big thing. They are pricey, right? But then you go on Monday and it's half off, but you'd wait an hour in the line be wrapped around the store. But now they
And
have self checkout.
and they have a lot of coupons and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's the one that I get a lot of hate for because I'm like, oh, I get my donation coupon and
We don't have that here. We
go.
don't have donate something and get a coupon. I've never had a coupon or redeemed a coupon at any thrift store around here. We don't have those.
And it's better now because of the self checkout. So whenever you donate something, you get 20% with a cap of $100. But when they had the physical cashiers, they wouldn't be as willing to break up the transactions so that you just hit the 100 and you can like use more of them. Now
So,
with the self checkout, you can stack all those on top of each other.
so
So
you
if you
could
spend 300, you can get all three coupons.
so you can walk into the thrift store and you can get 20% off every single time with
Yeah.
donations.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, but like you said, they are more pricey, so they're not dumb too. So they've probably factored in that 20%, fake sale. So like it's 20% higher than what it should be. So, all right, Savers, Value Village. Like you said, everything is laid out differently. So and it's kind of like that around here too. So like of the example of the four racks that we have to choose from, two front and back, one of them would be men's shoes, the other three would be women's shoes. And women's shoes, I'm not talking about sneakers, I'm talking heels, sandals, things like that. So do shoe sellers look at themselves as I'm a men's shoe seller, I'm a women's shoe seller? Because clothing sellers do look at themselves like that. Because, like, are you out there picking up a bunch of heels? Because if so, you would be a women's shoe seller. Or do you pass on those? And is it more kind of style or category of shoe seller?
I think, I think shoe sellers don't look at it as gender, more of a style, like the category
Okay,
style.
gotcha,
Because a lot of the people that sell sneakers, they're like, I'm a athletic shoe seller. I'm
gotcha.
heavy in athletic shoes, whether it's men's or women's. Me, I'm a good mix of everything, but you all know I love my women's comfort
Gotcha.
category and boots and sandals. And that's only because when you go to the thrifts, everyone's at the sneakers. Everyone,
Right, right.
it's common knowledge, and most people are not. To me, I know that sounds a little, I don't want to sound mean, but when you go to the sneakers and only do sneakers, like you're limiting yourself. You're
Absolutely.
seriously limiting yourself to just not wanting to learn anything else, get out of your comfort zone. Because there's a lot of opportunities out there in the shoe niche that I think a lot of people are passing on, and that's what I've kind of cornered in the market.
I agree with that because I listen in on the shoe call, and a lot of the brands that you guys talk about, I've never even heard of before. Because, like you said, it's not the Jordan, Nike, Adidas. It's not that. It's like I think I look at it as like an obscure brand of a women's sandal, but it might not be obscure. That might be the leader of women's sandals, but I have no education in women's sandals. So like it could be the Air Jordan of women's sandals, but to me, it's like an obscure brand. And I'm like, no one knows about this brand. But you pick it up, you show the comps, you show the sell through. People are well aware of this brand inside of that specific category of shoes. So I think you're right. I think that if you are a shoe seller and you're going for the sneakers, everyone knows Jordan is valuable. Everyone knows Nikes you need to look at. Everyone, including the thrift stores. And
Exactly.
if you go to the flea market, this is when you know something is like, you know, the shark has jumped. When like grandmas pick it up, that's when you know it's jumped the shark and like everyone knows about it. So like Nintendos, grandmas will pick those up. They know those are worth money no matter what. Jordans, grandmas will pick them up because they know those are worth money no matter what. And like once you get to that level where like everyone picks up Nintendo, even if they don't sell Nintendos, you got to kind of go in a different direction.
Yeah, exactly. The like you said, those well-known athletic shoe brands, the thrifts all know that too. So what do you think is going to happen? Those are going to be the 15 to $30 priced up pairs at the thrift. And that's why, you go on Instagram, excuse me, or social media, and so many people are like, oh my God, the prices in my area, like, what are they doing? I can't make this work anymore. The prices are going up and there's no margins left. But you got to pivot. Like, you have
Right.
to learn something else
Right.
because just because Goodwill or the thrifts catch on doesn't mean that there's not other opportunities for you to make money on.
Sure.
So that's just also there's less competition. When I go into the thrift, everyone's running to if I get there first and everyone's running to the athletic. I'm over here in, the Mary Janes and the boots because no one's over there. Everyone wants the sneakers. So I get to scoop up with no competition around me while they're still looking at the sneakers.
So all right, so that's on two fronts where you have to educate yourself on the brands in order to find those due to the competition. And like you said, they are getting priced up if they are getting put on the racks at all. Because a lot of
Right.
those are going to online. A lot of those they're selling not on the floor. So you have to know the brands first and foremost. And that category and those brands are way more keyword dependent than an athletic shoe. So, like you said,
Mhm.
boots, sandals, you need to know your keywords if you want to get those items sold.
For sure. Because athletic, like I said, there's not as much of a learning curve with it because it gives you the model name right there. Boom. You pop the model in, it tells you the act like the model number and you get the
Sure.
model name.
Right.
Copy paste and that's
Right.
it. You're good
Or
to go.
Jordan 5 bread. That's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need much to go off of there. So yeah, that's another barrier to entry is that and I've seen it too, on the call where people try to get into women's comfort and like I think you say it too. They're listening, but they're not really hearing what I'm saying.
Right.
So if I go to their store, the keywords are and the way they're doing their titles, you have the brand, but the way you're structuring it and the keywords you're using are not hitting the way that I taught you guys. You have to put these keywords in and think of, as you always say, like who is your customer going to be? And I think it's hard because a lot of the people in the shoe niche are men, right? It's hard for them to think of keywords
That
of
is
a
true.
woman's,
Yeah, that is
comfort
true.
Mary Jane. But that's why in the shoe call we go over a lot of those things like what kind of heel is this? Because I like to, talk about the item specifics. And like you said, if you don't know them, let's Google them and see what this looks like visually so that we don't
Right.
even have to second guess when we're hitting the item specific when we're in that category.
Absolutely.
So
So
it is
that's a
definitely a
great
learning
tip.
curve.
That's a great tip. Item specifics, any item specific I don't know, I go right over to Google Images and I get a visual every single time. And the other day I was listing a women's hat, and it wasn't a women's baseball hat. It was a almost like a fedora, but not quite. And I went through every single women's hat that I didn't know what it was. And they got some wild options for women's hats. Like, ain't nobody wearing these hats, but eBay has the option for it in item specific. Like some of these are ridiculous. Like some of them were like cone head hats that like they would wear in like the Czech Republic or something, and like ain't nobody using that as an item specific or style, but that's in there. But now I know the word, and now I know what the item is. So that's a good tip. What is another tip to, because you didn't come out the gate shoe seller, you didn't come out the gate in the niche that you're in. What is a good way, on top of Googling the item specifics, what is a good way of learning a new niche, learning new keywords?
To be honest, that's where I heavily go into Instagram. I think
Instagram.
because the way it the algorithm is nuts on Instagram. So because I research a lot of shoes, it'll start pushing me towards these newer, smaller brands that are paying for the advertisement. And then next thing you know, the next week I find that brand like
Wow.
Overland, Vivaya. That's how I found Vivaya. A lot of these smaller brands are definitely investing into their advertising on social media. And those are the brands that you want to dip your toes into because everyone knows the big box brands, but as we know, like when Hoka and like all these newer shoe like brands to us were hitting the market, um, you want to get in early because then once everyone knows about that's when you start seeing the market crash a bit. And I think that's been super helpful. Like getting on Instagram, I don't know what it does. I don't know how it triggers it, but it starts pushing me brands that I've never heard of before. I take that brand, I pop it into Terapeak, and I'm like, okay, this is holding strong. It has a good ASP, the sell through is hitting. And that's something that I need to be looking out for in the thrifts or when I'm outsourcing. So yeah, it surprises me, but that's been working for me. I found quite a few brands from Instagram ads while I've been out in the wild thrift.
That is amazing, and it makes all the sense. Because, like you said,
Yeah.
they're smaller brands, so they're not running commercials on the Super Bowl. They're running targeted ads on people that are typing on their phone similar brands into eBay, and that tracks it back to Instagram, and they're showing you stuff. So, like, you are in the mix of these up and coming brands that are adjacent to brands that you have searched or even talked about. Because I'll talk about puppies sometimes, and then my phone will start giving me dog food, and I don't have no puppies. So like it even
Dogs.
listens to you too. So like
Yeah.
that is, I've never heard that before, and I've never even thought of that. Where disregard this ad, I don't want to see it. To wait a second, I've never seen this brand. Let me look at it, and it makes all the sense that an up and coming brand is advertising on Instagram and not on TV and not on the Super Bowl. And like you said, you want to get the brand up and coming, because before everyone finds out about it and it gets saturated, once it gets saturated, it's market and demand the old fashioned way. So like, you know, Robert Graham was popping, everyone found out about it, went like this. Mizzen and Main popping, everyone finds out about it, it goes like this. Untuck It popping, everyone finds out about it, it goes like this. The brand Roebuck, the most insane sell through I've ever seen in my life. It's like 400%. Eventually, more people will find out about it, and it's going to go down like this. So, like, all that stuff happens. And some of it is people not knowing about it. Some of it is the brand is so new that not a lot of people are donating it. So it is the low supply on eBay, still high demand on the secondary market. So that is an interesting tactic that I've never thought about and I've never heard anybody talk about.
And so there might be fewer out there, but you do find those brands, and
Right.
because they're so new, the thrifts don't know about them either. So
Right.
that's what I mean. You have to be ahead of the curve on these brands, and that's one way that I found success in doing that.
So you brought up Terapeak. You went there. I didn't go there. You went there. I always say jokingly, I say, oh, Terapeak is for losers. I say that jokingly. Terapeak is a great tool. I am old school. We didn't have Terapeak when I was growing up on eBay. I always do 90 days, and I feel like the 90-day sell through that eBay provides is enough data for me. You love Terapeak. Why do you like Terapeak over eBay? What are the benefits for you? on Terapeak?
Um, I like Terapeak. Well, I used to do the eBay solds until they made that update a couple years ago where the strike through and then you can't really see what the offer is. So that
Okay,
threw me
great.
off because
Yep.
with shoes, that can really that can really change because it could be listed for 60 because they saw one brand new pair that was in like new condition. So they saw that pair sell for 60, so I'm going to list mine at 60, right? But theirs is beat up and maybe they didn't put that into their head that mine's super beat up. I shouldn't be listing it as at this $60 price. So then they end up accepting an offer at 20 because that's the only offer they're getting on that pair. So I think there's a lot of like there's a big gap. I think at least for in the shoe niche where like they listed at one price, it ends up selling for another. So when eBay made that change where the strike through you don't really get to see what the actual sold price is, that's when I then pivoted over to Terapeak. Um, and so when I'm out in the wild, I just have Terapeak in my browser. It's always a tab open in my browser. Have it set to 90 days. I pop it in. It gives me the average sold price, the sell through rate, and then I just take a look at a couple of the other solds really quick, and I'm in and out, and I already know what to do with that pair, whether I'm going to grab it or not. So
Is
that's the only reason.
is Terapeak, because on the computer, it's very comprehensive. On Terapeak, is it really good mobile friendly?
Yeah, so I have the desktop version like in
Gotcha.
my browser.
That
So it's
that's
the
what I was
same
gonna
as
ask.
it looks on the
Right.
computer. Yeah.
Because I couldn't imagine trying to smash that into mobile friendly. That would just be an overwhelming avalanche of data, but makes total sense that you use the desktop version on your phone. And for the people listening, if they don't know how to get to the desktop version, you go to your browser, not the app, you go to your browser, type www.ebay.com. It's going to default you to the mobile site, scroll all the way to the bottom and click classic site or desktop site, and that's going to bring you to ebay.com. And I like going to ebay.com on the phone is because I can, and what I always do, I always search Nike shirt. I press used, I press sold, and then I leave my phone on that screen, on the sold screen. And then I can just type in anything I want on the search bar, and the results are always going to be used, sold. It's not like the app where every single time you have to reset it, go to filter, go to sort, click this, click that. You have to click like 6 different times to get a search result on the app. Where if you go on the browser, it's going to stick and remember used, sold, and you can just search Nike shirt. You can search Doc Martin. You can search whatever you want, and the result is always going to be sold. And like you said, with the strike through price, this is old school. If I really wanted to see like where an item sold, I would sort high to low or low to high and then pin it between two buy it nows. That's what we used to have to do. So we used to see an item with a strike through price and it was starting at 99. You would have to sort high to low and find that item between a $60 and a $70 item. And you're like, okay, this sold for probably $65. That's what we used to have to do before Terapeak.
Yeah, but so why did yeah, I don't know. I just like black and white.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
which
so
I'm surprised that you like it, but I
I'm
get
set in my
that
ways. I'm
you
set in
said
my
in your
ways.
ways, but usually like because of the personality type as we mentioned at the beginning, you're black and white, and I'm like Therapy lays it out black and white. Why wouldn't you like that? I'm
Right. But
guessing
if
no.
also if it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it either.
Yeah, I know. It's a double-sided coin there. I get it.
So all right, you go on to Terapeak, and what did you say you look for? You look for the sell through, the average sales price, and you look at a couple quick comps.
Yeah, like I also have it sorted from to most recent. So not
Okay.
only do I have 90 days, I do the 90 days just so it can, when I'm in the thrift, I would just want in and out. And chances are I'm only comping like one or two because at this stage in my sourcing, I'm pretty confident in what I'm picking up. It's just those brands that might be a little off and I want to see do some research on real quick. So I want it to be quick so I have it locked in because on Terapeak you can also lock it in.
Mhm.
So I have it locked into used, like you said, buy it now, best offer, and then I take a look at the ASP, the sell through, and I also have it sorted by most recent sold, so that I can look and see like the last few sales and how they're hitting.
So with Terapeak, I struggle a little bit with the ASP prompt because someone is always going to sell it for 1 penny or for $1 or for $5, and someone is always going to sell it for $500. Does that skew up the ASP on there? Do
For
you
if there's
eliminate
less
top and bottom?
results, exactly. So if there's less results, it could heavily skew it, right? Because it's a
Right.
bigger chunk of the sales. But you can also go into Terapeak, and if there's anything that you see that's like
You can
doesn't look
set the
right,
filters to exclude them.
you can do that, but you can actually physically click on that item and say exclude.
Right. Yeah.
So you can do the price bucket if you want
Yeah.
on there, but it's easier for me to just exclude the one-off items and get a more accurate ASP.
So the times that I've used Terapeak, what I've done is I've used the price bucket, and instead of technically getting an average sale price, I get the average median price, which I think is way more valuable because I don't want to see who won the lottery with this item, and I don't want to see a seller that made a bad listing or made a bad choice. So when I lock into Terapeak, the times that I do use it, I eliminate the top and bottom and just get that median. And because like you said, it can skew it. So that's very good. When I look at comps, I search it on eBay, I go to solds, and I kind of just do like 1, 2, 3 swipes. And if we're in the ballpark with those swipes on end recently, I rock and roll with it. So I don't look for a whole bunch of different ones. If I'm holding something in my hand and it's $4, swipe and I see 20, 30, 18, 20, 30, 18, 20, 30, 18, 20, 30, 18, I go. Because I know I can sell it for between 20 and $30. And that's and then if I get home, I have to do more research, fine. But that also, like you said, comes with experience, comes with things like that. And in the beginning, when I was out there, I would do a little bit more comprehensive research. Also, sometimes you could just search an item and you could look at the active price and you take one look and go, oh, we're good. You know what I mean? Like you could look at the active price and go 80, 80, 80, 80. All right, we're good. And you just go from there. So yeah, a lot of great tools are out there. So it is interesting that you said you sort Terapeak by 90 days. I was expecting you to sort it by a longer term.
I I used to do a year, but when I'm out in the thrift, I want to do the 90 days just because I want to know how this item in my hand is selling right now.
Right.
Um, and just get that quick sell through. I do the 90 days. If I don't find a lot of results for that
Right.
item, I, you know, it's the opposite where I start narrow on this part of it, but then I go broad because of the seasonality with what I'm selling.
Right.
Um, sandals might not. We're in
So
that weird season right now where boots and sandals might be a little.
all right. So let's say it's November. No, let's say it's January. We've had 3 months of cooler weather. You're holding a sandal. The results aren't very favorable. Will you back up Terapeak and look at prime season for sandals? Like look in the summertime, and the opposite with a boot. If it's August and we've had 3 months of warm weather and you're not seeing great results, but like you have a feeling, or not even have a feeling, do you do as a shoe seller? Because sandals, you know, boots, do you back up and look at the season where this item would excel?
I do because, especially now, I think January, we should be gearing our stores up for spring, summer already. Like
Okay. Yeah.
winter is gone. Whoever wants boots, for the majority of the people, they already have them. So I do think it's important to look into those, the larger picture of the seasonality and go a year, 6 months, whatever you want, however you want to look at it. I usually just do a year because Terapeak does show you a lot of those charts on how particular items do with seasonality.
Right.
So I will do that because I want to, and it's important. If you don't have space to store these items, then maybe you don't get the sandal. But for me, I like to prep my store as we go into those warmer months, as well as when we go into those colder months, because building it up, having this supply for when that time comes, they're ready to grab and sell.
Absolutely. And you made a great call in the shoe section all about Terapeak. It's clearly labeled. It's a Terapeak tutorial. And a lot of people have found a lot of value on that call. So I do appreciate you for making that call. All right. What is the process difference when you get home between a more wintry boot and a sandal? Is a sandal way easier to process? Yeah.
It's super easy, yeah.
So, all right, take us through the process and the differences between a boot. Describe the winter boot, and then describe the sandal, and what is the workflow for each?
All right. Well, when I'm doing shoes, I kind of just first in, first out.
Yeah.
So I don't batch anything up because that makes it for harder days one day and a easy day than the other. So I batch them all together and do about 20 at a time. And sandals, it could be as easy as taking stickers off. I will say I'm a stickler for picking up clean pairs. I don't like to spend a lot of time cleaning pairs. And I think that's what separates my processing time from a lot of the other shoe sellers in the group because I'm not there cleaning it for a long period of time. If it
All right.
had pet
So
hair,
let me ask a question based on that. Since you do make it an effort to pick up cleaner shoes,
mhm,
as a result of that, that means you have to go to more stores.
yeah,
So
so that's a good trade-off.
the trade-off is always I'm going to get cleaner shoes, but it's going to take me longer to find them versus I'll accept these shoes, but it's going to take me longer to clean them. And if I was a shoe seller, I would do the trade-off that you're doing personally.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
it's a pick your poison kind of thing,
Right.
and that poison is pretty good to me, I
Do
guess. I don't.
do you ever fall into the trap of I'm on my third store today? Let me make a concession and start picking up shoes that are not as clean,
No,
or you go.
no. Yeah, I leave. It's not often, but there's been times where I leave out of if I do a full sourcing day, there might be one store out of the whole day where it's a goose egg. I will walk out. It's taken me some time because I know I've talked to you about refining the items I'm picking up and like getting rid of a lot more of the fluff. Um, so it's been a progression over time, but I have built somewhat of a discipline to walk away empty-handed if I need to.
Nice. So okay, so we got the sandals. Sometimes those are taking off a sticker, they're ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
The winter
Boots.
boots.
Boots are tough, especially if they're shearling lined, right? So I try not to grab any with any pet hair in the shearling, anything like that. Any shoes overall, whether it's boots, sneakers, anything. Pet hair is super time consuming. Um, and over here in Chicago, you'll find a lot of boots that have salt stains on them.
Salt
Those,
stains.
yeah, you don't know about that
I don't
life.
know about that.
So, those are pretty easy. I think that scares a lot of people off. It depends on how deep they are, but you kind of just scrub it off with a damp cloth and a little brush, and you're good to go. But I'm super picky when it comes to boots and suede. Suede is I won't pick anything up that has heavily stained suede besides like some of those salt stains on them. I know
So
you had to Google it to see
I'm
what it
looking at
looked
it
like.
right now. So a salt stain almost looks like a sweat stain on a shirt.
Yeah.
That's wild. I have never in my life heard about that on shoes. So does that come off pretty easily or no?
It depends. Some of like, the Uggs. I
Like
won't pick up
nubuck, it's not
Uggs.
going to come off good, right?
Yeah, it just depends because it depends if it's a light dusting. Like you can tell, I don't know. I guess it's a Chicago or
Wow.
Midwest thing. You can tell the severity of it, right? So if I'm in the store and I'm seeing a salt stain, I can tell whether or not that will come out easily. It's the thicker, like you go like this with your finger, and if it's super caked on there, I'm not messing with it. But if it's
All right.
just a little, maybe they wore it out one time.
Go ahead. You picking these up?
No, I'm not picking those up. Nope.
Okay. So, all right. So
No.
is this kind of like what you see?
Yeah, like something like that, especially with that leather, it'd be easy to clean and polish because that's pebbled leather and you can easily throw polish and buff for that salt stain out. But when it's suede and nubuck, like you said, it's a little more difficult.
All right. Pay attention. Pebble leather. It's not just leather. That is the importance. We got to have the keywords. Would something like this, because like Carhartt jacket, if it's distressed, it's worth more money. Is there any sort of that in the shoe category?
Nah, I don't think not for the Clark's desert boots. I don't think they would want those. But I don't know. I mean, I
I
could be
have
wrong, but in my experience, I don't think like this kind of salt stain adds value to the.
I have never in my life, because I live in Florida. I'm from Florida. I've never seen snow. So what about this?
That's a little excessive. I probably wouldn't mess with that.
So
That's
how do you get this off with a toothbrush and solution?
Yeah, because it's just the like salt on there that was mixed with water. So you throw a little damp cloth on there,
Hmm.
and it'll buff out, and then you can put some polish on
Wow. Okay. All right.
it.
So
This is the barrier to entry I was speaking of. Like,
I'd never even considered that because I know like cars, they get beat up on the bottom from the salt. I've heard of that.
yeah.
It never crossed my mind. So like, do people's pants get beat up by the salt?
Like the jeans, if they have baggy jeans, they'll get all crusty on the bottom.
Wow. That's amazing.
But
All right. So the boots are usually going to be of a more variety of material, which is going to result in the difficulties with cleaning and assessing whether they can be clean, where your sandals are usually just going to be leather. Your athletic shoes will be leather. But like you said, there's nubuck, there's suede, there's a bunch of exotic skins that you're very good at. Um, so that is part of the complexity with picking up and cleaning other than kind of sandals and shoes then, right?
yeah, but it's weird for me because I will pick up a beat up leather item over a beat up athletic shoe, if that makes sense. Not beat up, but like dirty athletic shoe. Because with the and it's weird because I guess you can throw the athletic shoes in the washing machine, but I never go that route. So if it has the fabric upper that I have to sit there and scrub, I'm not going to do it. But if it's a leather shoe that has value, I will take the time to throw some polish, heel, and edge dressing on it and buff it out if I need to. Maybe that's just a preference thing, but I'd rather put the time into leather items than sneakers.
Well, those items are going to sell for more profit. They're usually
Usually, yeah.
nicer, more high quality. Wow. So like fly knits, are those like impossible to clean on the uppers? Or are those easy to clean?
Fly knits, I mean, you could throw them in the washing machine. They're
Throw them in the
relatively clean.
washer.
But like the New Balance 990 suedes, those can be a little trickier um, because they have different. So usually with those, they sell pretty well. But if they're a little beat up, I'll still pick them up. I just won't go crazy with the cleaning because it's pretty difficult to clean those.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And these are always a little bit beat, right?
Yeah, and that might be a good example. Some like them fresh, and some might like them a little more beat up, like the Carhartt. Like you'd be surprised, some of the ones I sell in that model, they'll still take them if they're a little beat up or just colored.
So what is kind of the hierarchy of difficulty when it comes to material? Is it suede, nubuck, leather, exotic skins? Like what is kind of like the easiest to deal with and the most difficult to deal with?
I think you got it right. Suede is the most difficult. Any smooth leather for me is pretty easy because, it has that protective coating on
Like a
it. You don't
coating
have
on it,
to,
yeah.
yeah, they're not super porous. So those are pretty easy to clean overall. Nubuck, you can still put a wet, damp cloth on it, but it's a little easier to clean than suede, but it's a little in between because it does absorb it and you have to give it time to breathe after you wet it. So suede though, I would recommend don't pick it up if it's heavily stained at all. It's very time consuming. The tricky thing about suede is that if it has one spot on it and you try to clean that spot, you got to clean the whole boot plus the other boot because if you clean that spot, it's gonna dry darker and it's still gonna look like there's a spot there. So that's where like suede can get a little tricky when it comes to cleaning it. You have to go all in and clean both pairs. with the same amount of liquid too, because then it could dry patchy. So that's why I recommend if you're gonna mess with suede, pick it up in pristine condition. Unless you want to experiment. Everyone, you got to learn somewhere, but
Yeah.
I'm
So
good.
like
I'm done with my experimenting.
so like the animal skins, you're pretty good at identifying those. How did you learn those? How did you, because like some of them are wild. Like we saw a pair the other day where it was water lizard.
It's a lot of just the Google machine, like you said. I'm in Chicago. We don't have many Western boots over here. So when I come across them and it looks a little different, I just do the research for it, and compare and contrast like the gator and the snake and the lizard, ostrich. I just found some ostrich boots last week. And then once you start knowing these patterns, it's almost like second nature. But
Yeah.
Google is pretty good. It has a lot of like different comparisons, like gator versus crocodile, um, lizard versus snake, and you get to kind of see a side by side view of the patterns and compare it to the one you have.
So if you do have an exotic skin one and you can't nail down what it is, do you just go exotic skin?
Yeah, for the most part. I think someone was asking about that last week, and I'm like, it looks like we were saying that it looks like lizard, but if you don't want to say that it's lizard because you're not sure, then just put
Right.
exotic, and those people that are searching for that item or any exotic leathers, they're gonna know what it is. It's the buyer will know what kind of skin it is when they buy it.
Absolutely. So, all right. So when you started with us, like you said, you were considering yourself hobby seller. Last year did a couple 100,000 in sales. The consistency and probably the knowledge and the keywords is kind of what got you to this point, right?
For sure. Consistency. And the crazy part is that you don't need to be doing a ridiculous amount of listings to
Let's talk
to,
about
to
that.
reach your goals.
You decreased your goal, your listing
Yeah.
goal, and ended up making more money.
Yeah. Because as you were saying, like when we were gearing into football season, it also lined up with them going back to school, and I had some personal stuff that I was helping my mom with. So in July, I was listing 20 since the
Right.
beginning of last year, 2023. And then when July hit, I knew that it was crunch time with all that other stuff I just mentioned. So I decided to cut it in half. I cut it in 10. So from middle July to the end of the year, I was just doing 10 a day, and I was still able to hit the 200K gross. But it's just because I built my store up to that point, right? So I was selling, my store was shrinking, but once I knew once I hit that plateau that I would have to bump it back up. So it's okay to take a step back. You'll still get the sales as long as you built your store up to a certain amount. It'll still hold. And at the end of December, I started seeing, okay, I'm at a point now where I'm listing 10, selling
Mm,
10.
mm.
We got to press the brakes again so that we can grow the store back up. And listing 10, selling 10 at my ASP is still not a bad place to be in. So um, I think it's okay if you guys feel like you need to take a step back. I think it's better to take a step back and still stay consistent at a smaller goal than it is to just miss a day of listing, a week that
Sure.
turns into a week of listing and snowballs from there.
Sure. So
So,
you saw the store plateauing, and that's why in the beginning of the call you were talking about increasing your listings because
mhm.
it is plateauing. So now we got to, you know, put more stuff into the store and kind of rinse and repeat. Can you see what you did this year, listing 15 or 20 a day when you're able to seasonally, and then listing 15 or 10 a day when you're not able to seasonally and kind of have that be your model? Do you think that's something that maybe you do in 2024, or was that like a one-time thing?
Well, it's interesting because of that call that I did with Isaiah. I noticed like right now I'm in a sticky situation where using my numbers last year, like if I averaged the 20 going from the 20 to the 10, if I averaged it for the year, I was listing 14.5 items a day, but I sold 13 items a day. So I
Right.
was like almost right there. So this year, taking those stats and applying it to this year, like I have to kind of increase the goal line, like,
Yeah.
the daily listings, in order to then increase the sales. Like, because if I do the same thing, I'll make the same amount, cool. But if I want to surpass that, then I do need to take it up a notch.
All right. So that'll lead us to our final question. 2024, what's the plan? What's the mission? What's the goal? I know you love this. And we have the 100K call, and Nina likes to, I'm gonna do all of this, and then a couple of minutes later, hold on. Let me take that one out and let me stick to this. And that's fine, because the only rule for the 100K call is what? If you say something, you gotta do it. So I know you've thought about it. Don't pretend like you didn't think about it, because all we do is think all day, me and you. Um, what in an ideal situation, how do you see 2024 playing out?
It's tricky because I did that call with Isaiah about my numbers a couple weeks ago, and I had it in my head that I wanted to hit the 250K with a reach of 275. But there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Sure. A lot.
I've been, because I can still make what I'm making now, like what I made in 2023 gross, but my profit margins would be higher because of the way that I'm sourcing now.
Yeah.
But so that's where I'm like stuck. I feel like I said I had a midlife crisis, because I don't want to look at the gross numbers, because at the end of the day, I want to know, like you say, money
Profit.
in the bank.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
like bottom line tax papers. But that's where I'm a little stuck on the fence of what my goal should be, because I don't, because of the changes in my cost of goods and all that, like I don't know what to project or what to shoot for.
So
Um,
your cost of goods decreased like 50% or more? Like, was there a big decrease in it?
uh, yeah, about almost 50%.
Yeah, that's huge for the profitability and the bottom line. So like if you could decrease your cost of goods, um, conventional or unconventional sourcing methods, and you just list the same exact items, you're going to have a much larger spread profit wise on those items. So that's why you're saying you could do the same thing this year and be much more profitable, because there's only two ways to make more money. One is to bring your expenses down. Two is to get more sales without bringing your expenses up. So getting more sales would be listing more items, increasing the listing goal, increasing your knowledge, your average sale price, your profit per item. Or like you said, you can cut the cost of goods and then pick up a profit there and not really change much of the workflow or the infrastructure of the business. So nothing wrong with that. As long as there's more money in the bank, I'm happy at the end of the day. But we can't go backwards, and try not to stay the same, because as we know, everything rises around us. So we at least got to do a little more.
Yeah, I think it, like I said, it's hard. I'm never one that, I don't set goals that are like way out there. I kind of like to focus more in the present and the now. So I know that I'm doing 15 since the start of the year. I was doing 10 at the end. I'm doing 15 at the start, right? I'm gonna be jumping up to 20 soon. If I stay at that 20 the rest of the year, hold my ASP,
It's
everything
gonna be
else is just
crazy.
gonna
Oh
come.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
everything else will
yeah,
come. So why
yeah.
plan or have this big goal of gross profit, when if I do those two things,
Yeah.
everything else will work out for itself.
And I'm the same way. I focus on what's actionable, and I know me listing 15 or me listing 20 every single day, staying true to my metrics of this is how much profit I want to make. This is what my sell through needs to be. I can't control who buy these items. I can't control that part. I can control me sitting down, taking my photos, doing my listings, having product that does meet the metric, and then doing the best that I can for the customer when they do purchase an item. Everything else after that will take care of itself. And if we concentrate on just doing that, someone buying our item is outside of our control. They're either going to buy it or they're not. We have to make sure it's available for sale, make sure it's done properly, and then do a good job when it does sell. The money will come after that. But if you do 20 a day, every single day with the stuff you sell and with your cost of goods now decreasing by 50%, that would be a monster year.
I just got to get, wrestling season's about to end. So hopefully that buys me some time before football season starts and I can really, really hit this hard. It's been difficult, but I think I can do it. I,
Yeah.
I, I got a little burnt out last summer when I was doing the 20 up until July. So I just want to avoid that, but I am planning like with the things you talk about in the 100K call about like planning for the summers where I have to foot the bill for a lot of the expenses. So I'm pre-planning for that, and I didn't do that last year.
Nice.
So I'm setting certain things in place and just focusing on planning and executing on those items. And I know that if I do that, then hopefully the burnout will be a little less.
What was the burnout, the stress of carrying that, or the burnout of actually doing the eBay work?
It was both because it's
Okay.
like you're in the summer, you feel like you do this because you want to spend time with the kids, but you're always down there working. So, and then like I said, the financial aspect of it as well. So I think it was a mixture of both. And I'm like, all right, let me just take a step back, focus on the family, do what I got to do, and then when everybody's settled back in school, we could figure this back out again.
Perfect.
But
So one more question. For as far as sell through goes, what kind of criteria are you able to achieve and look for with shoes? Can you do a 90-day sell through with shoes, or does it have to be longer, shorter? Like
I
what is
think
the
it's
criteria for you?
mine. I had a 6 month sell through and it's
Okay.
starting to teeter off. I think a lot of it has to do with seasonality, so it could be a little trickier. It's just from my own experience. Like if you sell primarily sneakers, maybe not. I don't know.
Sure. Jordan's
But
probably sell through much quicker.
exactly. So for mine, if I can try to get back up to that, and I'm only off by like a percent or so from where I
Okay.
was before. But of course, as we all know, as you scale up, you tend to
Yeah.
it's not a given, but it does tend to happen if you don't stay focused and disciplined on the items you're picking up. So that's what I'm trying to maintain. It's like you trying to juggle all three things at once and make sure none of the balls drop on all
Yeah.
those. So
And then juggling being a mom, juggling family, juggling all of that
yeah.
and keeping everything up. So it is amazing what you do. I have an immense respect for you. I like that you do your work and that's it. You do your work, you get it done, the results show. You're not worried about all the extracurricular. You're focused on Nina, you're focused on Nina's business, and you're building Nina's business, and that's it because it's very noisy. It's easy to get distracted, but I feel like every time I talk to you, I feel like you know the task and it's going to get knocked out. And a lot of people, I think, maybe don't have as clear a picture of what the task is. And maybe that's where they kind of fall into trouble. But for you and I, everything is black and white, everything is laid out. We know the task and we got to knock it out. And like that's of the utmost importance. But I do admire everything that you do. I admire your knowledge. I admire your straightforwardness. You don't play games. Call it like you see it. And I thank you very much for jumping on with us. And I think you're going to be a huge inspiration to many sellers, many shoe sellers, especially mom sellers, because you are running a beautiful business. Like you said, you're able to do everything with the kids, be there for the kids, contributing because that's important to you, and running a business that does a couple $100,000 a year. And I really appreciate everything that you bring to the group and everything that you help with. And your success is very important to me. So even though we don't talk a lot, you know I'm always there for you. And I know anything that anyone needs help with, you're always there for them. So I do appreciate that. So for the folks out there listening, do you want to throw them your Instagram or throw them anything or tell them to kick rocks and end the stream? I'm good with both. We
No,
can
I
tell them
just
kick
appreciate
rocks.
you. I'm not
That's
too
it.
active on Instagram anymore, so I just appreciate those listening in, and hopefully you found some value in it. I know I was a little nervous to come here, but hopefully you were able to find little nuggets in here, and it helped you with your business. So I appreciate Tech having me on.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Nina was a little nervous about coming on. She came on, and I know her story, her being a mom. I know that's very relatable to a lot of people, and I think it's a very important story to tell. And I thank you for telling that story.
Thanks.
So, as always, everybody, thank you for listening to the Reseller Greatness Podcast. Don't be good, be great.